So what is it that we're doing here?
We are preparing the dough part of a puff pastry to be able to do the book fold, to fold in some butter layers
Okay.
into it later.
So we've got cling film as a base. Why do you need the cling film?
Just to wrap it up and put it in the fridge, but you make it into a square so that when it solidifies a bit, then it's easier to roll out. You get to a rough shape.
Okay, and this is proper puff pastry, it's not going to be rough puff pastry.
None of that rough puff pastry here, we do the real deal.
Yeah. Are you going to put it in the fridge or the freezer?
I think you can put it in the fridge, but I think I'll try the freezer today because it's getting late.
Okay.
And we want.
So we're just going to put it in the freezer now. We're not going to not going to video that part, I don't think. But it's going in the freezer, and we'll come back to you in a few seconds. Through the mysteries of the time warp. So we've got the pastry in the freezer and in a container so that it keeps its shape. So what are we doing now?
Preparing the butter, which we're also going to put in the freezer for the buttery layers of the puff pastry.
Okay, what kind of preparation is it going to have?
I'm just adding a bit of flour to it to make it a bit more malleable. It won't melt immediately under your fingers when you're working with it.
Okay, and so you're going to blend it with the blender?
Yes, hopefully. I'm just going to see. Oh, I was measuring that out when that was the perfect amount.
Oh, well, there's probably a word for that. The Greeks probably had a word for it, the ancient Greeks.
Maybe.
Okay, so this is the flour going in. There's no set quantity for this, it's just how much you think?
No, 25 grams.
Oh, 25 grams.
Types
Oh,
of flour.
sorry. And is this part of the recipe?
Yes.
Right.
So we've got some strong bread flour.
Okay.
And we've got some plain flour.
Plain.
Because we're not making bread.
I can sense a bit of a conflict going on here because the strong bread flour is from Waitrose and the plain flour is from Tesco. Do you think that's going to make any difference to it?
Hopefully not.
No. I think they're going to be fighting each other inside the mix.
I think I'm just going to give this a bit of a stir with a bigger spoon than that, so that the flour doesn't all jump up in my face when I mix it with the mixer.
Yeah. I'm going to have to tell you that this blender is not the most sophisticated blender in the world. I bought it in Asda and it cost, how much did it cost?
25.
6.
6!
That is 6 UK pounds. Pounds are like a bit like dollars because you can like spend them. Except the pound is worth more than a dollar.
Just about.
You didn't have to say that. And a US dollar is worth more than a Canadian dollar. I just thought I'd throw that in. And a Canadian dollar is, I believe, worth more than an Australian dollar. I just thought I'd throw that in as well. And an Australian dollar is, I believe, worth more than a New Zealand dollar.
Okay,
Okay, so here we go again. It's not really going smooth and creamy. I don't know whether I expected that.
I think it's going to go smoother once I stir it with not this, but...
Right, it's just a blender that's...
Yeah,
it makes it, it's making it look lumpy, but it's not really lumpy. It's more just fragmented than lumpy. Subtle difference there.
See?
Ah, oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Oh, bam, I doubled the quantities.
Yeah, apologies for the language there.
I doubled the quantities of the dough mixture, so I'm going to double the quantities of the butter mixture.
Right, so we're going to have to...
Back on the scales.
back on the scales, and we're going to have to do that again. Well, not redo it again, you just repeat the process with more material. And a New Zealand dollar. Well, I can't think of anywhere else that has dollars.
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, you know, I really don't know. But I'm going to bet that a New Zealand dollar, in Hong Kong dollars, it sounds like the kind of thing that you'd have to spend like $1,000 for a beer or something like that.
Hong Kong dollars, I think, are 10 times a pound. Is it 10 times a pound? I want to say 10 times.
What, £10? Hong Kong dollars are £10?
No, you have to times a pound by. So if you have 50 Hong Kong dollars,
Don't stop.
if you have 50 Hong Kong dollars, then that's £5.
Yeah, that's the way I thought it would be. So that's making you guys in the US feel pretty good now.
But this is before Brexit, so I don't know. I don't know the current conversion rate.
Well, I'm just going to repeat that again and say it's making you guys in the US feel pretty good. Your dollar is so strong, but you know it's still not worth as much as a pound.
Now I don't think I'm going to add as much flour, so it's not completely doubling the quantities. So it's still nice and buttery.
So what's making you make that decision?
Well, honestly, I just gave it a cheeky taste and it tasted very floury. But you want a nice amount of butter so that it all melts and creates those layers rather than forms just a secondary dough.
See what you mean? Yes, it could kind of co-mingle with the regular dough. It could taste floury though because the flour's not cooked yet, so that's going to make a difference when the pastry is actually cooked.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Never know.
I'm going to just add a little bit.
I think that, not that I'm an expert in cookery, but one of the things that I do think is the case is that if you keep going by the quantities in the recipes and that's all you ever do, so the number of grams or the number of millilitres or ounces or cups for the US visitors. Don't really understand those measurements. If you stick to the quantities on the recipe and that's all you ever do, you'll never really learn how to cook because you won't be able to adjust the quantities. You're measuring the quantities every time. Whereas if you allow yourself a few mistakes initially and you estimate the quantities and then you just compare how something turns out with what quantities you put in just by eye, then you're developing your cooking instincts. That's what I think. I'm sure that's what you think. What? Why you got to tell?
I don't really know how this blender works. Okay, no.
Well, basically, the further you push that knob, the faster it grows, and that's the control of the Scott. You know, funnily enough, that is looking more creamy now than it did before.
Because I didn't double the quantities of flour. That's how you clean them.
Yeah, it makes it look like they're making candy floss. That just went on my foot.
Sorry.
Oh gosh, I'm going to have to edit out your name for anonymity and privacy purposes. Otherwise, Google and YouTube will be spamming us with retargeting ads for those what? Flour, butter, blenders. They'll be sending us ads for blenders. Hey, if you're watching this video now, Google's listening to all this. You know that, don't you? And they've heard the word blender. So you're going to get retargeted. Loads of ads for blenders. And I bought it in Asda, which is our local version of Walmart. So you're going to get ads for Walmart now. I mean, this is the internet. You know how it works now.
I've got butter on me.
Oh no.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to... See, a real chef's kitchen isn't this cluttered.
Well, this is my kitchen, and I'm going to say that it is just a naturally messy kitchen. It's nothing to do with me. It's just kind of like just the charm and atmosphere of the place. It just inclines itself towards messiness, and it affects anybody that comes in here.
Plus, those celebrity chefs have someone to clean up after them.
Well, yes, I suspect we don't see a lot of that. They just edit that out. So, why does this part of it have to go in the cling film?
Because it's going to go in the fridge again.
It's going to go
no, the freezer, sorry. We're freezing everything. But also, we're going to put it over like this to make two layers,
okay.
and then just use it to shape the butter into the same square that we used for the...
Okay, and you're going to put this in a container?
If I can find one,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. So I can find one, so the video might just get a little bit wobbly while I'm finding a container. Wow.
I think that's roughly the same
Just here, this
size.
container. I take the lid off with one hand.
I think some people would use a rolling pin for that step, but then the butter's soft enough to just do it with your hands. You see, this makes it into a nice square, the same shape as the dough.
Okay, so that's going in the freezer, and we'll come back when it's ready. So is that okay? We're done for now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. See you in a bit. So we've taken them out of the freezer, and we're ready to go on the next step.
So, yeah, you can see they're a bit hard, so this one will need a bit of bashing, but that's all right.
I'd just like to tell you while we're doing that I've been using the time usefully while they've been chilling, and I did check, and my ordering of the dollars was in fact correct as of the time of making this video. So indeed the United States dollar is the most powerful, and the Hong Kong dollar, hey, I'm going to say you're probably not the worst, because there's other countries that have dollars of their own. We've got a bit of a blank space here, so I don't know, I'm going to have to fill it with some chat. If the picture's a bit shimmery, well, we're going to have to blame Apple. I'm going to blame Apple, because clearly they've designed this for the American market with 60 Hz mains, and this is the United Kingdom with 50 Hz mains. You see, there's the United States, they have to go just one better again. So, we don't mind, because they
roll out our chilled dough.
They share much of our culture, and we appreciate it greatly.
Are you actually going to keep all this America chat in?
Yeah, people like it actually. I've been compared to... oh, here's a good question. Okay, who have I been compared to in the past? So there you go, there's something for the comments.
Hugh Grant.
And, Hugh Grant. And if anyone gets the right answer, no, you don't get a prize. No. I'll reply to your comment though. How about that? That's as good a prize as you're going to get. So, okay, that's enough of that. What are you doing now? Which one are you working on? Because we prepared two items previously.
This is the dough, and our recipe that we're using actually wants you to fold the butter around the dough, but I thought for the purposes of making traditional puff pastry, we'll fold the dough around the butter. And also that's nicer because it's less sticky when you're working with it.
Okay. I'm going to say that I don't really understand that, but it's one thing to explain something, it's another to demonstrate it in living colour.
So ideally we want this to be a little bit bigger, I think, just so it folds around evenly.
So that rolling pin you're using, it doesn't seem to be symmetrical at both ends. Have you any idea what's causing that?
It looks like one end has been sanded down a little bit.
It's been sanded down. I wonder what that was for. What could possibly entice somebody to sand down there?
Wondered what would happen if you...
Well, I'm going to say, and you know, there could be another video in this, that I bought a ukulele from eBay, and it was broken, and the head part of it was completely broken off, and I knew that when I bought it, but I glued it together, and some of the wood splinters I had to remove, and I made a filler from shavings from this very rolling pin and wood glue, and it works really, really well, and I learned how to do that from, guess what, a video on YouTube. So I think we could call this video journalism. Where did you learn how to do this?
Which part?
The whole lot, this whole puff pastry business.
I watch an awful lot of Bake Off.
Okay, just tell us what you're doing now, because this is where it's getting important.
So I'm just folding the dough around the butter so that it's all sealed up.
Okay.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to roll it out so it's about twice the length.
Okay.
Just to make sure it's all sealed in.
So, I think I've seen this before, that you have to be careful not to mix the dough in with the butter in this part of the process. I've heard about that.
Because otherwise you don't get nice layers,
Yeah.
and you might as well be making rough puff paste.
You might as well just mix the whole thing together. It's important to, well, not that I know anything, but that's what I've heard, is that it's important to keep the layers at this process. So at this time we've got like a sandwich. We've got, going from the bottom up, we've got dough, butter, dough. Is that right?
Okay. It's also important to keep the dough moving, otherwise it can stick to your work surface. No.
Yeah, this is the same work surface that I changed my bicycle tyres on. That's just a note for anyone who might have seen one of my other videos. You can comment on that as well if you like. I don't mind. It's all good.
Okay.
Okay, that's elongated nicely.
Okay, what we're going to do now is, it's called the book fold. Some people call it the double book fold, because other people would call a fold like that the book fold. But that's what they do on Bake Off, is they fold each end so that they meet in the middle.
Yes.
And then you fold both over so that it looks a little bit like a book.
Right, so you've like quadrupled it already.
Yeah,
is that right?
so doing the other method, that would only give you three layers, but then this gives you...
I'm going to say you've got 6 layers there. Now you've got dough,
One,
butter.
2, 3, 4. Like, so 4 layers of butter. So you count the layers
Right,
of butter.
okay. Yeah. We'll count the layers of butter, that's the best way to do
See,
it.
it's cracking that. You don't really want that, but too late now.
No, that does happen on the television.
Now what we're going to do is we're going to do just one more, and then one more, rolling it out, and then chill it again.
I can see where it's cracked. You can see the butter just poking a little bit through there, which ideally that's what you want to avoid.
Maybe what we'll do, actually, because this bit doesn't have any butter in it, just to make sure it's even, stick a little bit in there, and then
that's a smart thinking there.
That will stick on.
That's an A1 tip there for the would-be pastry maker. Of course, some of those TV chefs, like that Jamie Oliver, they just buy it from the supermarket, don't they? Well, that's TV chefs for you. If you're not in the UK and you've never heard of Jamie Oliver, well, I think I'm just going to stop that line of thought now, because it's not going to help with the popularity of my video. Because people do like him. I'm more of a Gordon Ramsay guy myself. I like his presentations.
There we go. There's another fold.
Well, I'm going to say I'm a bit iffy about his scrambled egg method. It's he's over egging it.
Okay, what we're going to do now is wrap this up and put it back in the fridge.
So how many layers of butter have we got now? So we had started with one,
and then that went to 4. And now there's another 4, so that's 4 fours, so 16?
16, we've got 16, that's fantastic, isn't it? And we've got to put it back in the fridge now. So, we'll put that back in its container again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're going to put it in the freezer just to speed things up.
Oh, the freezer, sorry, not the fridge, the freezer to speed things up. It makes you wonder whether things would be better chilled more slowly, but you'd have to test. And you wouldn't know that unless you tested it.
I think that the argument for chilling it slowly is that because this is made with flour, then there's it allows the gluten to relax. People say.
Okay.
But if you just make it at home, then
we'll see. So we'll see you in a few minutes when this has chilled sufficiently. So bye for now. Okay. So where are we now?
We have done 2 book folds, and we're going to do 1 more book fold before we put our puff pastry into action.
So we've got 16 layers now, so if we quadruple that, that's going to be 4 times 16 equals, is it 64? 64? 64 layers, my god. Imagine if you got a job and the first month you got paid £1, yeah, the Great British Pound, and the second month you got paid £2, and the third month you got paid £4, and then next month £8, and then 16, £5. It doesn't sound like much, does it? But by the time you get up to, what is it, about 10 months, you're about £1,000, and then 2,000, and then 4,000, and then 8,000. That would be nice. That'd be nice. The power of mathematics. Who'd have thought there was mathematics in baking?
There's quantities. You're going to measure your grams and all.
Yes, yes. I've got to go back to this because I did mention it earlier, that here we are in Great Britain, or the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, as we like to call it in full. And here we are kind of like half and half on the metric system, the old imperial system. So older people like me, I'm pretty much equally comfortable with them both. So it doesn't matter whether you talk about pounds and ounces or grams and litres and things like that. I understand them equally well. But younger people, I think, tend to gravitate towards the metric system. Is that right?
Apart from miles and height and weight.
Oh, we like miles. We do like miles. We don't like kilometres. No.
So for this recipe that we're doing, we're going to make it cinnamon puff pastry.
Okay.
So we've got this
ground
cinnamon and ground cinnamon and granulated sugar here that we're going to just put into one of our book folds to properly, well, not properly incorporate it. We want it to be sort of stylized rather than cinnamony.
Yeah.
And also the sugar, because it's granulated, will give it quite a nice texture.
Okay. So this isn't really the sort of thing you could do with a liquid sugar like golden syrup, because that would just soak in.
Yeah, you don't want to change the texture of your pastry too much.
No. But we're using normal granulated sugar and not caster sugar. Did you think the caster sugar would make a difference?
I think that it would, because it just granulated sugar, the way it melts, will give you some nice little pockets in there.
Yeah. Okay, here we go with the fold. The fold.
Put the fold like that in there, and then fold it into a book shape.
Yeah, I noticed we had there was a gap at the top there. There's the gap. Are you going to just leave that as it is, because it still will be okay? It's not going to be as puffy, I suppose. Or will you trim it?
Wait, trim it.
Well, where that gap was, just fold it again.
One sec, I'm just going to try and press this sugar in a bit more, because this sugar does not want to stay.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah. Just spilling out the side.
Should be okay.
Right, just fold it again. Okay, stop there. Right, so we've got part of it where it's got those extra layers, and a part of it, that triangle at the top, is still exposed. So I think you're just going to leave that, and that's just going to have less puffiness in it than the rest.
Should be okay.
I mean, you could trim it. I think I've seen people trim it on the television.
Oh, that's.
But I think that's going to be a bit of a waste in this case.
If ever it gets a bit too melty, just put a little bit of extra flour on it.
Okay. Someone's got a bit of a cough next door. Does it feel cold to the touch?
It is a bit cold, yeah.
Yeah. But it's getting, presumably, it's getting warmer as you work it with the rolling pin.
Warm quite quickly.
Yeah. So, how did people used to make puff pastry in the olden days before they had fridges and freezers? That's the question that comes to mind. Because they used to say that people with cold hands would be good bakers, or the other way around. That if you didn't have cold hands, you couldn't be a good baker. Have you heard that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I certainly have.
I've seen recipes that use, I was going to say you could use ice water, but then that doesn't make much difference if you don't have a freezer.
Oh, well, no, it could, because in the olden days people used to store ice over the winter, because before we had all this global warming, the winters used to be, well, in the UK at least, it used to be a lot colder. I certainly remember that. It used to be a hell of a lot colder than it is now. And people used to store ice. So, yeah, I suppose rich people. So maybe only rich people have puff pastry. I don't know. I can't imagine that puff pastry had to wait for the invention of the freezer.
I've also seen recipes that, well, some methods where you chill all of your equipment as well. So you chill the rolling pin in the bowl.
I can see a little bit of butter just kind of like leaking out.
What we're going to do, because I'm going to roll this up, then it's not going to be too much of a problem.
Oh, I see. Yes, but
I think I'm going to roll this up now for the recipe that we're doing.
So how does it feel? Is it going smoothly? Is it going to crack?
It's a little bit warm, but otherwise okay. I just want to make sure I get a really
but sometimes
nice...
when you see it on the television, they do that and it gets a huge crack immediately. As soon as they start, it cracks. But that seems to be going quite well. And presumably, you're going to...
Actually, I'm going to redo that. I'm going to...
Oh, that's a bold move, redoing it.
Just flour it a little bit. I think it's not getting tight enough. Well, there.
Yeah, this extra flour, clearly that's important. It makes a lot of difference. So the moral is have extra flour. And if you don't have the extra flour, well, get some extra flour before you start. Yeah, I was going to say about these measurements that we're used to, grams and litres and millilitres, whereas in the US you have ounces and cups. And cups, that always baffles me. I always have to look that up. And the worst thing is that we call it imperial measurements, but in some cases the US measurements are different to the UK measurement. I think it's in gallons. I think they're different. So, yeah, grams, millilitres, they work fine. That looks fantastic. I'm presuming that with this recipe you've got to slice that up so it's going to be in spirals.
Yeah.
At the end of it. It sounds like a band, like the spiral carpets. Remember that?
Are you going to film me slicing it too?
Are you going to slice it now?
Yeah.
Oh, go on then. Yeah. Just slice it against the worktop. I know we're not supposed to do that, but you know, I changed my bicycle tyres in here, and just.
Actually, might freeze it quickly.
Okay, we're going to put it in the freezer for a bit.
These ends will be cutting off anyway.
Yes.
We're going to make biscuits out of them, but they won't be like the neat biscuits.
Yeah.
So we can just freeze that quickly.
Okay, we're going to freeze that, and we're going to come back. Well, a few minutes for us, a few seconds for you. See you in a few seconds. So,
this has been frozen and it's a lot easier to cut now. The butter is all solid. And in here...
That could be like a test end, couldn't it?
You can see all the layers
Oh
of
my
butter
god, yes,
in
you
here.
can. You really can see that. Let me just move the phone around a bit and you can see the butter shimmering.
And then this is the cinnamon going through here.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's fantastic.
That's going to
be... that's like a test cutting.
Yes.
I mean, you're not going to serve that to your
well,
house.
you're not supposed... in our recipe that we're using, this is just like an end that you put out and then the rest of it you cut into 8 cookies.
The cats can have that. Yeah, I've got cats. They live outside. They're not really mine, but
they like to eat your food.
They come round to get fed every now and then.
Oh, it has got a lot of food.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It looks like a sea creature or a fossil. A fossil. It looks like an ammonite.
I'm going to cut 6 and then roll them out and put them on a baking tray.
So what's going to happen from this point is, are we going to cut the rest of them, put them on a baking tray? I just heard that. I didn't really know that, but I just heard it. And then cook them for the how long?
About 10 minutes because they're going to be. We're going to roll them out and they're going to be quite thin.
Oh, you're going to roll them? Oh, wow.
Just a little bit so that so all these layers like mesh together a bit better.
Ooh, I didn't expect that. And then so roll them, put them on a baking tray, cook them for 10 minutes at the normal temperature.
Yeah, I think about.
Which is 200 Celsius. I don't know how much that is in Fahrenheit. I really don't know.
You want them to cook quite hot and fast.
Yeah.
Oh,
the butter. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. We must remember to mention that we need to shock the butter. The butter needs to expand all those layers. That's the whole point of puff pastry. It needs to puff. And if it doesn't puff, you've failed. And you know what? If this doesn't puff, we will still show it. So that's what they call jeopardy, isn't it, in television? That you don't know what the result is going to be. It could turn out, well, it could turn out like proper puff pastry that you could buy in a shop any day of the week. Or it could turn out as flat, they could just turn out to be pancakes, cinnamon pancakes. And we don't know. We don't know, and you don't know. And you'll have to watch to find out. But we will show what happens, whatever the result.
See, this is what happens when you don't flour your work surface.
Oh gosh, yeah, yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? When you see professional kitchens on the television, they often have metal work surfaces, so maybe that's the difference. And the advantage there is they can cut on those surfaces, whereas it's going to damage this kind of surface. Maybe that's the next thing in kitchen design: metal work surfaces. I think that's a good idea. You know, it's starting to look like the rings of Saturn, like the photographs from the Cassini probe, just finished recently.
Where can I find a baking tray?
A baking tray. I do have one, but where it is? You know, I'm just going to have to pause for a moment, and we're going to have to go off and find a baking tray. I'm going to say it's going to be a rather old one, so prepare for.
Have to be quite quick before the butter melts.
Okay, here we go. So, here we have a baking tray with some baking parchment, as they call it. In my day, we used to call it grease-proof paper, but things move on. So, it's a matter of manipulating the spiral, giving it a bit of a roll, giving it a flip.
Oh goodness. I have to do this quickly.
You could either do less or fewer, or do them quicker, or put them on
I'm
as
just
they
going
are.
to do these 4 for now, and then refreeze the rest.
Okay, so we've had a bit of a hiccup there, and the butter's melting. So, you know, this is one of the points of doing this, is to find out what the real life problems are, which you don't see on television. So, what we're going to do is cook these ones and refreeze the rest. And that's some good, quick thinking there. You see, on the television, they edit this out, but I'm going to go for it. So, we're going to put that in the oven, cook it, and see what turns out. And well, we'll see about the rest of them. We might include it, we might not, just depends. So, let's cook those. Oh, like a few little sprinkles. I didn't quite get that. Sprinkles of what?
Just the same granulated sugar and cinnamon mix.
Okay, so it's going in the oven right now. So here it is, the grand reveal. Okay, it's a bit flat. I'm going to say it's a bit flat. It's kind of turned out because they do look plausible, and you could see that in a cake shop.
See, these I turned these over halfway through cooking, hence why this one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This one has kind of fallen apart when I turned it
Oh
over.
yeah, yes. But it's got layers.
You can see just from this is a nice flake from when we did one of those folds. In this one, we can really see the layers. These bigger layers are from when we curled it up in a spiral. But
Yes.
these smaller ones, that's from the actual book folds.
I like this one here. It's got a kind of a symmetry and a spirality and a circularity and all that swirliarity, if that's a word. I know it. So I like the bit on the outside actually. This part, I think that would be interesting to eat. I mean, that's kind
The
of
only
like.
problem is that it's going to fall apart quite easily, because I think the problem that we've got here is that the butter wasn't cold enough when we put it in the oven. So
Yeah.
what we're going to need to do is make sure that the biscuits are actually really cold when they go in the oven. If that means putting them in the fridge or just rolling them out really quickly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, roll them out and then chill them again. So where are we now? We've still got some more that we haven't done yet.
Lots more.
Lots more.
We've got some in the fridge that haven't been rolled out yet, but they have been cut. We've got a whole block that hasn't been cut yet.
Okay, so we've got some results from what we've done, and you've seen exactly what we've done. So this is kind of like the result you can expect from that. So, bit of science here. We're trying some alternative procedures, and like Edison said before he invented the light bulb, he'd found 99 ways not to do it. And it's just that last way is the way to do it. And we're going to find it. If we don't do it in this video, we're going to do it in the next one, or maybe the one after. So, okay, we're going to wait a little bit more, and then we're going to come back and see what the results of our further freezing, our further chilling are. Okay, see you in a few seconds.
Okay. Oh, these are nice and solid.
So, what are these? Let's just recap on where we are at the moment.
So these have been turned, these have been cinnamoned, these have been cut up, and we just need to roll them to make them nice and flat.
Yeah, so the problem with the previous ones was that the butter wasn't cold enough, is that right?
Yeah, the butter wasn't cold enough, and we did a taste test of them, and I think that they could do with some icing sugar on the top.
Oh, okay. So these have been chilled again?
Yes, in the fridge for about 10-20 minutes.
I'm just going to... in the fridge?
Yes.
Yeah, they are cold.
You see that this one hasn't been cut properly, my bad.
Yeah.
Should
It's
still
nice,
taste
it's nice.
good.
This is what we want though, we don't want baking perfection, because you can go out and buy that in the shop and that's boring. It's always the same. And it's full of preservatives and laxatives and... well,
Laxatives.
well, maybe. But this is purely wholesome ingredients. In fact, you can look at the packets of the ingredients and you can see everything that went into that. Whereas you buy something in a shop, who knows what's in it? Who knows? I'm sure it's all good stuff, but I think we've got really, in essence, I think we've got a better quality product.
This one here is the tester one.
Yeah.
We wouldn't usually bake that, but because
No,
this is a
we'll
nice,
bake that.
wholesome home cooking, we're going to really flatten it out.
Yep.
Because it doesn't have much cinnamon in it,
Yep.
we're going to sprinkle a bit more.
Oh, okay.
See how that works out.
The weird thing is that one might turn out the best.
Yeah, who knows? You can see it doesn't have as many of the spirals
It's,
in as
you
the
roll
others.
it out thinner than the rest? Or,
It's just because there's more
Oh.
dough, so I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
it to be the same thickness.
cool.
I'm just going to add a bit of icing sugar for taste more than anything.
Okay, that's a bit blobby.
So,
A sieve, yes, I do have a sieve, but the question is whether you're going to find it. I did use it earlier on, and it might be in the dishwasher. Thank goodness for the power of video editing. Eh? Can you hear that? Did you hear that?
that is the known way to dry a sieve.
Oh, that's more like it. Yeah. Oh, well, that's a lovely, lovely shadow on it actually. Okay, we're doing some finger
My hands are clean, I promise.
sieving. We could do a whole video on finger sieving, couldn't we? It could be a new thing, a new craze. A new thing on Bake Off actually. We haven't seen that before.
A little bit more.
This Bake Off we're referring to, we keep mentioning that, but it's a programme on British TV. It's called The Great British Bake Off.
If you're in America, you can get it on Netflix.
Yeah, it's
Binge watch a bit.
it has appeared in different versions in different countries, but I think the British one is the... Well, obviously the British is the best, obviously I would say. Well, there we go. There we go. Off you go.
I've watched the Australian one, and it's not good. I don't think it made it past its first series.
Open the door. And there it is. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mixed
good
bag.
colour.
Let's have a little poke.
Yeah, there's no better test in baking than having a little poke.
They seem to be holding together a lot better. I mean, there's still
they-
these gaps, but then this one. Oh no, this one was the last one. But
They're still bubbling. I can see the butter bubbling just there.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing that in the last one. Some of it here, and here, we can see the layers separating, just there. But just there, they haven't really done that. And this one here, the layers have started to separate, but here they haven't.
This one, these two are a bit thicker, I think, so maybe that's the next test to see if the thicker one's a better one.
That one is the most even all round. So all the way around you look at it, it's pretty much the same in colour. Well, not colour, but if you look at the colour gradient from inside to outside, it's the most similar all the way round. I'm going to say that I don't want to blame it on the oven, but okay.
You can see this white, that's the icing sugar there, so that's not too bad.
Oh, okay, okay. I don't want to blame it on the oven, but when I put 4 Yorkshire puddings in at the same time, with the same batter, same quantities, same everything, they all turn out very different. So it's not surprising that... How different is this from the expectation of what it should be? What should it look like?
I think they usually look a bit more like... So they're supposed to be biscuits.
Should they have risen in this direction, in the vertical direction?
Not too much. They're quite flat.
Yeah.
But they do like puff up, like puff pastry should. But I do think that they have more. This is more the stereotypical shape, or this maybe, rather than they're supposed to be oval.
Okay.
And then not have these like little tails here.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I'm not really sure. Oh yeah, this colouring, you're supposed to have that nice swirl of cinnamon, which this one doesn't have as much. But this one was the first one, so I'm not really expecting it from that one too much. So
if we were going to give this a percentage of success, well, 100% is wow, isn't that fantastic? Where are we?
As far as home baking goes, I'd say about 60.
60?
Yeah, I mean they taste good.
No, we have tasted them. Sorry, we didn't mention that, and I'm sorry we didn't show it, but we just we were enjoying it too much.
They taste good. These ones are holding together quite well. I mean, apart from where I dropped it just now with that crap, they're holding together quite well. I think ideally you'd want them to hold a bit better than that, but.
So for home baking, we're saying it's 60%. If this was like amateur bakers on television, what would it be?
I think because we've got the layers and not too bad. Maybe not at the top of the rankings, but maybe
we're not star baker, but I don't think we're going out this week.
Yeah, we're pretty safe.
I'm going to say that if this was television baking, there would be several candidates pretty much worse than that. So what we can say is that we've showed the whole of the method. We've showed entirely what we've done in all stages. The oven, we didn't say the temperature. Oh, we did with 200 Celsius.
Oh, I didn't say that. I turned it up for this batch.
To about what?
220.
220. Oh, 220 Celsius. If you want that in Fahrenheit, go to Google. Google will tell you just fine. So we've gone through all the stages. This is the result that we've got. So I think we could say we've concluded this video. I
do think that if you're using our method of making puff pastry, then for like a pie or something, then that would work nicely. I think it's just the complexity of these biscuits is the reason why.
Just at the tail end, I mean, I thought it has just come to me. It really has just come to me in this moment. Is that when you've laid it out like this, it's almost like you're expecting the puff to expand horizontally, whereas if it was a pie, you'd be expecting it to expand vertically. And maybe the friction against the baking parchment, maybe that's inhibited it in some way. These things are worth exploring, I would say, and this isn't going to be the last video, I don't think, in this series, because we want to get this right. But I think we've learned something, and I think if you followed all the steps that we've taken, and you can see what the result is, then perhaps you've learned something as well. But we've got a comments section just below the video, and feel free to say whatever you like.
Remember to like and subscribe.
Oh, of course. So that's it. Thank you and good night. Let's go and feed the cats.